There are moments when the world feels hollow. You look around and wonder why everything that once seemed certain now feels distant, muted, almost unreal. You move through the motions, work, conversation, plans, but deep down, there's a silence you cannot explain, a silence that no amount of distraction can fill. And maybe you've told yourself that you're broken. Maybe you've blamed yourself for the ache you carry, the restless emptiness inside. But what if feeling lost isn't a mistake? What if it's a signal? Not a sign that you've failed, but a sign that you are shedding a version of yourself that was never truly yours to begin with. Feeling lost is not the end. It is the beginning. It is the space between stories, the old identity dissolving, the new not yet fully born. It is the sacred void, the pause between breaths, the winter before the spring. You are not lost because you are failing. You are lost because your soul is shifting. You are lost because you are no longer willing to live asleep. You are lost because something deep within you refuses to settle for a life that is not aligned with who you truly are. And though it feels disorienting, though it feels lonely, though it feels like free fall, it is, in truth, a sacred recalibration, a pulling away from what is false, a turning inward toward what is real. You are not losing yourself. You are losing everything that is not yourself. And in that loss, there is a hidden gift, a chance to build a life not based on expectation, obligation, or fear, but on truth, on resonance, on the quiet, steady voice that has been calling you home all along. Feeling lost is not your enemy. It is your invitation. The question is not, how do I fix this? The real question is, am I willing to let go of who I thought I was, to become who I really am? When you feel lost, it's easy to believe something has gone terribly wrong. It's easy to panic, to scramble for a plan, to search desperately for something, anything, that can bring back the illusion of certainty. But the deeper truth is this: certainty is often the first thing that must dissolve when the soul calls you home. The maps you were handed, the ones drawn by parents, teachers, culture, were never designed for your soul's journey. They were drawn for survival, for conformity, for fitting into a world that itself forgot its way long ago. And so, when your soul stirs, when your deeper self begins to awaken, those maps no longer work. The roads they promise lead nowhere. The destinations they offer feel hollow. This disorientation is not failure. It is a sign that you are leaving the known world. You are stepping into a territory that cannot be mapped by intellect alone. A territory that demands you trust something deeper than logic. Intuition, resonance, the subtle pull of what feels alive, even when it doesn't make sense. You are not supposed to have all the answers right now. You are not supposed to see the entire path. If you could, it would not be a journey. It would be a transaction. Feeling lost is how the soul strips away false certainties, how it clears the ground so that something real can be built. And it is here, in the uncertainty, in the disorientation, in the aching confusion, that something sacred can finally be heard. A quieter voice, a deeper knowing. Not the voice of fear, shouting for guarantees. Not the voice of ego, demanding validation. But the voice that has always been whispering beneath it all. Trust the space between. Trust what you cannot yet see. Because feeling lost is not the end of the path. It is the portal. And beyond it, if you are willing to walk through without clinging to the old, a truer version of yourself waits. One that does not need to know every step ahead to move forward. One that does not build its safety on control. one that moves with the living current of life itself. There comes a point when the old ways of navigating life collapse. The formulas stop working. The affirmations feel hollow. The goals that once seemed so urgent lose their grip on your heart. And in that collapse, in that terrible, beautiful freefall, something extraordinary happens. You begin to see, not with the eyes trained to seek approval, not with the mind conditioned to calculate advantage, but with the vision of the soul, clear, raw, unfiltered. You see that so much of what you pursued was never truly yours. Dreams borrowed from others, definitions of success written by hands that never knew your heart, paths paved not with your deepest longing, but with fear disguised as ambition. And when you see it, truly see it, you cannot unsee it. You realize that the life you were building, piece by careful piece, was never meant to hold the fullness of who you are becoming. It was too small, too shallow, too scripted. The feeling of being lost, then, is not punishment for failing to stay on course. It is the invitation to leave the map entirely, to step beyond the edges of what you were told is possible, to walk into a landscape shaped not by the voices of the world, but by the quiet, fierce call of your own being. This is where the real journey begins. Not when you have the answers, not when you feel certain, but when you are willing to move anyway, guided not by clarity, but by courage. The courage to sit in the discomfort, the courage to trust the unseen, the courage to follow the subtle currents pulling you toward a life more vast and vibrant than anything you dared to dream. Because you are not lost. You are shedding. You are not broken. You are breaking open. And what feels like disintegration is, in truth, initiation. The beginning of the end of who you thought you had to be. And the first step toward becoming who you really are. As the old structures fall away, you are left standing in a kind of sacred emptiness. At first, it feels terrifying. You are stripped of the roles you clung to, the plans you depended on, the identities you wore like armor. You feel naked before life itself. But slowly, quietly, something begins to stir in that emptiness. A new architecture, not imposed from the outside, but arising from within, not constructed by fear, but shaped by resonance. You begin to feel your way forward, step by uncertain step, not by following rules, but by listening to the subtle pull of what feels alive, what feels real, what feels true. You start to notice the quiet moments when your heart expands instead of contracts, the conversations that leave you more whole, not more fragmented, the spaces where you breathe easier, deeper, without needing to perform. And you start building from there, brick by brick, breath by breath. A life crafted not to impress others, but to honor yourself. You are not rushing anymore. You are not forcing. You are allowing your soul to take the lead, allowing your true nature to reweave itself into every choice, every action, every moment. This rebuilding is not fast. It is not linear. It is not always visible from the outside, but it is real. It is lasting, because it is built on a foundation the world cannot touch, the foundation of your remembered self. And as you build, you realize something extraordinary. You are not returning to who you used to be. You are not trying to become someone new. You are allowing who you have always been to emerge, finally, fully, without apology. The feeling of being lost, then, was never a detour. It was the doorway. And by walking through it, you are doing something few ever dare. You are living from truth, not tradition. From soul, not script. From presence, not performance. And that changes everything. If something inside you is starting to remember the way home, subscribe, and let's walk this journey together. As you rebuild from truth, your life begins to feel different in ways that are hard to explain. It's not that every external situation suddenly transforms overnight. It's that your relationship to them does. You stop needing constant validation to know you are enough. You stop craving endless distraction to feel alive. You stop bargaining with life for your worthiness. Instead, you move with a quieter kind of power. You find joy not in chasing new identities, but in shedding the old ones. You find peace not in controlling outcomes, but in trusting your alignment. You find fulfillment not in reaching some distant destination, but in the authenticity of each step you take. You become less concerned with who is watching, less entangled in proving anything to anyone, less willing to betray yourself for approval. And because you are no longer living from fear, your frequency changes. You attract differently. You choose differently. You build differently. Opportunities start appearing that resonate with your truer self. Connections form not out of desperation, but out of genuine alignment. Ideas flow not from frantic effort, but from stillness and inspiration. You realize that life was never trying to punish you with confusion. It was trying to clear the noise so you could finally hear yourself. And as you move forward, you understand something the world rarely teaches. Clarity is not found by thinking harder. It is found by feeling deeper, by trusting the currents beneath the surface, by honoring the silent language of your own soul. You are no longer lost. You are no longer wandering without a map. You are remembering that the map was never outside you. It was encoded within you all along, waiting, patiently, for the moment you would stop searching outward and start listening inward. And now that you've begun, the real journey can finally unfold. As you live from presence, the way you move through the world shifts in subtle but profound ways. You no longer feel the compulsive need to chase every opportunity. You no longer scramble to be everywhere, do everything, prove something. You realize that what is meant for you will find you, not because you sit passively, but because you are finally aligned with it. Presence becomes your magnet. You listen more than you speak. You sense more than you analyze. You respond more than you react. And through this, life begins to organize itself around you in a way that feels almost magical. Not because you forced it, not because you manipulated it, but because you remembered how to move with the natural flow of your own being. You are no longer fighting the river. You are becoming the river. The people you meet feel different. The opportunities you notice feel different. The way you experience even the ordinary moments of life feels infused with meaning you used to miss. You see beauty where you once saw boredom. You see connections where you once saw separation. You see invitations where you once saw obstacles. Because you are no longer looking at life through the cracked lens of fear. You are looking through the clear window of awareness. And from this awareness, everything becomes sacred. The way you prepare your morning tea, the way you greet a stranger, the way you sit quietly with your own breath. These are no longer empty rituals. They are living acts of remembrance. Every choice you make from presence, no matter how small, becomes an act of creation, an affirmation that you are here, awake, alive. You no longer live from the question, what do I need to do to be enough? You live from the knowing, I am already enough, and from that fullness, I create. And that changes everything, not just for you, for the world you are helping to reshape with every conscious breath. When you live from presence, struggle stops being your default setting. You begin to realize that life was never meant to be a constant battle. It was meant to be a collaboration, a conversation between your soul and the living intelligence that breathes through all things. You no longer wake up every day preparing for war, with yourself, with others, with existence itself. You wake up curious. Curious about what life wants to show you today. Curious about how your own being might expand. Curious about what new pieces of yourself are ready to emerge. You understand that challenges will still come, but you meet them differently now. You no longer see them as attacks. You see them as invitations. Invitations to grow. Invitations to deepen. Invitations to align even more fully with your truest self. Instead of forcing your way through obstacles, you learn to listen to them. Instead of demanding that life conform to your will, you learn to dance with it. And through this dance, something extraordinary unfolds. You begin to trust yourself, not the self cobbled together from expectations and fears, not the self performing to earn belonging, but the deeper self, the self that knows how to move with life because it is life. Trust becomes your foundation, not trust in specific outcomes, not trust that things will always be easy, but trust in your own capacity to meet whatever arises with presence, with grace, with clarity. You stop needing guarantees. You stop needing constant proof. You walk forward not because the path is perfectly clear, but because you are perfectly connected to the next step. And that is enough. Because real safety does not come from controlling life. It comes from being in right relationship with it. You are no longer fighting the current. You are swimming with it. Not lost, not powerless. Fully, vibrantly alive. The more you trust the unfolding, the more the illusion of being lost dissolves. You realize now, you were never truly lost. You were shedding layers of expectation, shedding identities built on fear, shedding dreams that no longer fit the truth blooming inside you. You were not wandering aimlessly. You were being stripped down to your essence, not so you could be punished, but so you could be free. And now, standing in the clarity that only surrender can bring, you feel it, a deeper alignment, a truer rhythm, a current beneath your life that you no longer need to fight. You no longer seek a path carved out by others. You no longer chase a future built on someone else's definition of success. You no longer abandon yourself for acceptance. Instead, you build your life the way your soul always intended, from presence, from resonance, from remembering, and everything changes. The people you attract mirror your deeper authenticity. The opportunities that find you are aligned with your higher path. The challenges that come feel less like punishments and more like sacred thresholds inviting you to expand. You live lighter. You live freer. You live truer. Not because life has become easy, but because you are no longer fighting life itself. You move through the world not as someone trying to find their way back to who they used to be. You move as someone becoming who they always were. You don't need a map anymore. You don't need guarantees. You don't need to explain yourself to a world still addicted to forgetting. You are home. Home in your body. Home in your breath. Home in your being. And in this homecoming you discover the truth that was hidden all along. You were never lost. You were only being called deeper, called inward, called home. You were never lost. You were crossing an invisible threshold, one that most miss, because the membresas, they are too busy trying to fix themselves, too afraid to let go of the map handed to them. But you didn't miss it. You paused. You listened. You stayed in the discomfort long enough to hear what was really being asked of you. Not to run faster, not to think harder, not to be better, but to remember. Remember the pulse beneath the panic. Remember the stillness beneath the struggle. Remember the quiet knowing that existed before the world taught you to doubt yourself. You are not here to endlessly chase something outside of you. You are not here to fit into a life that suffocates your spirit. You are not here to perform a script written by those who forgot their own hearts long ago. You are here to remember, and through that remembering, to build something new. Not just for yourself, but for the collective. Because every soul who dares to walk this path carves open space for others to follow. You're not a mistake. You're not behind. You're not broken. You are on time. You are on purpose. You are on the edge of something vast and real and waiting to be claimed. And it begins, as it always does, with a single, sacred choice. To trust the feeling that you were never lost. You were being called deeper. The only question left is this. If you trusted that feeling completely, what would you dare to become next? Tell me below. Not the answer your mind thinks sounds right. The answer your soul has been whispering to you all along.